There's always a way to say no or challenge someone's idea respectfully. This is something that, as a recovering people pleaser, was very hard for me to agree with initially and to realize that it actually was possible, but it is. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through steps to be able to push back with authority, but without being aggressive, being assertive without being mean. I'd love you to take a moment though and think a little bit. I'd love you to write it down or just pause the video and think for a moment about these two questions. When have you agreed with something that wasn't realistic? This could be at work, maybe a project. This could be with a significant other or a friend with plans maybe that you thought, yeah, I could squeeze that in as well, but you really couldn't. And then when in that conversation, what made it difficult to push back? Why did you feel like you didn't want to push back or say no to this? Take a second, think about it, write it down. That reflection is a great way to help you learn and think about how this shows up in your life. Awesome. Now that you've written that down, let's shift that mindset. Let's go into some mindsets that I had or that I've heard of as well, and how I shifted those to make sure that I felt able to push back or say no to something. A common one is, I don't want to upset them. I get that. You don't want to upset them, make them not like you, make them think that you're not capable, whatever it might be. But instead, you might want to say something to yourself like, I want to set us both up for success. I want to make sure that we're being realistic. I want to make sure that I'm not lying to this person about something that's possible. Or maybe you're worried they'll think, oh, she's being difficult. Oh, you're a difficult person. But instead, they might see it as, oh, you have good judgment because you're able to look at something pragmatically or logically and say, oh, no, actually, that's not possible with what's on my plate right now. Or even just a simple, I can't say no. This is something that I had in my head all the time. I can't possibly say no. But you can change that to, my yes is that much more meaningful. If I say yes to something, it means I'm fully behind it, I'm fully supportive of this, or I really want to go to that event, I really want to do that thing. My yes has a lot more weight. Let's look at some other techniques for pushing back, other ideas that you can keep in mind, and some phrases as well that you can use. One thing that I'd love you to change in your mind is that assertive is not the same as aggressive. Just because you are asserting something, you are saying no, you are pushing back, this doesn't mean that you have to be aggressive. It doesn't mean that you are mean. It just means that you are being assertive and factual about something. I like to say that is clarity with care. Or to be clear is to be kind. And you can think of this as you're saying no to this, but so that you can say yes to other things. Maybe there are other projects that you're needed on. Maybe there are other things in your life that need your energy right now. So you have to say no to this thing so that you can show up the way that you'd like to show up on those other activities or projects. Also, when you push back, think about that you are setting boundaries with context. So you're not just saying no, you're setting it with context, giving them a bit of a why, explaining that why. For instance, let's say that someone is asking for your help on a project and you already have a pile of projects that you're working on and way more work than you really know that it's humanly possible to do in a week. You might say something like, you know what, to give this the attention that it deserves, this project that you want me to work on, I'm going to have to finish up some other things first, so I wouldn't be able to help you with this until at least next week. Can I look at my workload and then get back to you about what's reasonable for me? Or to give this the attention it deserves, I really need to finish X project first. Can I get back to you on X date? You're not saying no, you're not saying I don't want to do this, but you're pushing back a little bit. Well, I can't do this right now. Here are the logical, pragmatic reasons. And by this date, we can talk again and figure out how I can support you on this. My favorite one, and this has taken time for me to get because I find silence difficult, or I have found it difficult and I'm getting better at it, the pause technique. When you feel like you're being pressured into something, or even you're just invited to something, and as a recovering people pleaser, that can feel like pressure, pause. Count to 3, take a breath, and think. This signals composure and thoughtfulness, not hesitation. No one is going to judge you for taking a moment to think about something. And if you're worried they'll think something's wrong, just say, let me think about that. Give me a second. And the last one that I really like is to frame it like a partnership. Let's say whatever they've suggested is something that you definitely can't do. You know it's not possible, but instead of just saying no, you can say, ooh, I don't know that that's going to work, but let's come up with something together. Let's problem solve this and figure out what we can do. This way, pushing back feels more collaborative as opposed to oppositional. And speaking of oppositional, this is also a really important skill to think about, the idea of redirecting. So let's move into that. There are going to be times when we are going to have to redirect, but make sure that you're validating first and then doing the redirect. This is also something common that happens when you're facilitating. Someone might be having a long-winded answer in a workshop or something like that, and you may need to cut in because they're taking up a lot of time. This is something that a facilitator often uses. They will validate what they're saying and then redirect to keep things moving. And this is a great skill to have in meetings as well. These are the 3 steps that I like to use. 1 is hear. Start by acknowledging what you've heard. Acknowledge their need. I hear that you need X. Number 2, collaborate. Collaborate to find that solution. Here's what we can do together. And then number 3, offer options. Instead of just a no, here are some other creative solutions that we could use. You're providing context and you're also providing alternatives instead of just a wall. Here are some other paths that we could take. Again, emphasizing that idea that we are working together, collaborating to find a solution that works for everybody. And there you have it. That's pushing back with confidence. We're not always going to agree with everybody. We're not always going to be able to help everybody. We're going to have to say no sometimes or come up with alternatives, and that's okay. But having the right techniques to make sure that we feel comfortable, make sure that this other person doesn't feel more frustrated or it doesn't escalate to an even more difficult conversation is really important. So I hope these were helpful. And after this, we are going to move on to the Rethink framework, where I'll walk you through from beginning to end. A difficult conversation has started. Here are the main steps that we go through. Rethink is, of course, an acronym, and I'm going to go through each of those and give you all those tools. If all you look at from this course or have to reflect back on is this, it can be a really great acronym just to keep on your desk or on your computer so that if you are having a difficult conversation, there are these steps that you can go through to hopefully get to a place where you're both able to understand each other more, de-escalate, and find a better solution moving forward. Thanks for joining me.